Hey everybody, I am in nature. I'm not in the kitchen today, not yet anyway, but I am in nature and I'm on kind of an adventure. I am foraging today for what I'll be making later. I'm making honeysuckle jelly. Now, for those of you who are not from the South, honeysuckle is just about the best smell in the summertime. I'm telling you, you can just take a deep breath and honeysuckle just kind of overcomes you and it's just delightful. It's so nice and sweet and the nectar's delicious. And when I say make honeysuckle jelly, I really mean I'm going to use honeysuckle blossoms to make some jelly. I'm going to be infusing it, so I'll be making a tea. But first, I've actually got to find some honeysuckles to work with. That's why I'm out here in the middle of the woods looking for the not so elusive honeysuckle. So let me get busy and see what I can find, okay? Let's go walking. Okay, y'all. I have come upon some honeysuckle. It did not take me long in my search because, like I said, it basically grows everywhere here in the South. I'm on this road and I just had to look up here in the tree and I have found what I'm looking for. Now, you see this? Let me pluck it off here. These flowers are basically nectar of the gods. I'm not kidding. It smells so good. And seriously, when I was a little kid, we would split these suckers apart and you can squeeze it and a little bit of the juice will come out and it just tastes so good. It's so sweet. But this is what we're going to be using today to make our jelly. I'm going to pick a whole mess of these and see if I can, see if I can get a whole mess of them because I'm not seeing a whole bunch of them, but I know they're out here because it just smells so wonderful that there has to be more than just this little bit growing in this tree. So, bear with me and I will hopefully, I need at least 6 cups. So, I'll let you know how I do. Y'all, finding honeysuckle, it's not really hard to do. I mean, I'm right here on somebody's driveway and just look. Do you see all that? Now you see why I say that it's an invasive species because you see the vine it grows on? It just takes over and it just covers other native species and they compete for the sunlight and for nutrients and yada yada yada. So some people consider it a nuisance. I love honeysuckle, so I just let it grow because I like to pick it. And for this reason, I learned how to make jelly. But don't pick all the blossoms if you're going to get out here and do it because we're foraging and there's other critters that depend on these blossoms, like the hummingbirds love them, bees love this nectar. So if you're going to harvest like a big find like this, just take about half, leave some for somebody else. That's the way to be. Okay, so after about an hour of picking, I ended up with this big pile. And now, here's my little nephew, Zanny. Hello. Hi. We are sitting here and we are picking the flowers off of the stalk because they're just so much easier to pick this way. Otherwise, you'd be standing there forever just picking little flowers off. So it just makes more sense to clip these with my scissors, put it in a bag, and then bring them here, and then we just sit here and separate. That way we can have a good chat. Right, buddy?
Right.
Okay, let's get back to work. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we ended up with this giant pile of leaves and this little pile of flowers. This is probably about 5, maybe 6 cups of flowers. So we've got enough to do one batch of jelly. So let's get to it. Okay, y'all, I'm back here in the kitchen and we've got the tedious part of this jelly making process taken care of. We have separated the majority of the blossoms from the leaves. Now, you'll notice that there are a few leaves still in amongst these blossoms, and that's okay because the leaves on this particular plant, the honeysuckle, they're not toxic. But we don't want the flavor of the leaf. We want the flavor of the blossom. So that's why we took out as many of the leaves as we could. And if there's a stray one here and there, well, just pluck him out. If you want to. But I'm not going to be bothered with it because it's not going to make that big of a deal because we have so many blossoms. Now this is, like I said, about 6 cups. It could be a little more, it could be a little less, but I haven't packed them down, so I'm looking at probably about 6 cups. That's perfect. That's going to make a nice batch of jelly. So I have already rinsed these blossoms in water because I wanted to make sure there wasn't any little creepy crawlies, any kind of little bug or spider. I didn't want those in my jelly. So I rinsed them several times in cold water. It has to be cold because we don't want to add heat to them until we're ready. So what I'm going to do to show you so you can see the process, I'm going to add these blossoms into my jar here. And I'm probably going to make a hot mess of it. And that's okay, because that's my jam. So we're going to put these into this jar. And this is the jar that we're going to let the blossoms steep in. Because remember, we're making an infusion. We're basically making honeysuckle blossom tea. We're just not using a dry tea bag. We're using fresh flowers. And, you know, if you are familiar with the making of tea, the process, well, then you understand what I'm talking about as far as making an infusion, because we're not going to be using the blossoms for anything else in the process. Excuse me, put my bowl up. Grab all these little loose ones because we don't want to lose any of them because they got a lot of flavor. So gather up all the little stragglers that are dropped, stick them down in here inside this glass jug. Now I have got water in my little electric kettle. I've got it coming to a boil, because what we're going to do, we're going to hit these flowers with hot boiling water, and that's going to shock them, and it's going to make them wilt, and they're going to release all the flavor and all the color. It'll be interesting to see, because generally when I make a jelly from a flower, be it honeysuckle, which is generally white and yellow, or if I do rose petal jelly, which is generally, I use a pinky purple variety. By the time I'm through leaching the tea out, the rose essence out, those petals are just as white as can be. So it's almost like a bleaching process. That hot boiling water shocks the blossom, and it just changes its physical composition basically. And, well, there we go again. It's science. Who knew? Science in the kitchen. It's required. So, I hear my water just about coming up to a boil. In the meantime, I'll show you a few other things that I have done. I've got some stuff set out that I know I'm going to need. I'm going to be using just a regular powdered pectin, which is required for any kind of jam or jelly that you're going to make. You might not have to use a store-bought brand. Maybe you have some crab apples or some Granny Smith. Any kind of good tart apple is full of pectin naturally. So my granny, she never used store-bought pectin. She always just depended on apples. But I'm not that good. I'm not good like my granny was. She could do anything, and I have to buy this stuff because, number one, it works. And it works every time if you follow the directions and if you respect and observe the method, because jelly making is messy and it's hot and you'll burn your finger if you're not careful, but the result is such a nice product. This honeysuckle jelly, I swear it's going to be unlike anything you've tasted before, because, well, you can't find it in the store. I have made this jelly so many times, and I give it away to friends, and they're like, "It's what?" I said, "It's honeysuckle blossom jelly." And they don't believe me at first. And I crack the jar open, and I give them a taste. And the only thing that comes to my mind, other than the sweetness, is it tastes like sunshine in a jar. It's pure summer. It's summertime sunshine in a jar. And somebody needs to start mass producing it just because it's so stinking good. But it's not going to be me, because it took me about 2 hours to pick these today, and that's a lot of work for about 8 or 9 jars of jelly. So I hear my water, so let's take a look and see if it's close. Let me touch it. Oh yeah, she's hot. It actually looks like she's boiling. So I'm picking her up here, and I'm going to measure out. We're going to pour. Ooh, this is a 4 cup measuring cup. So we're going to pour hot water directly on it. Now notice this water is not boiling. We don't boil the petals. It's like when you're making tea at home. You don't want to use boiling water because we don't want to cook this. We don't want it to turn into mush. We just want to shock it to release the flavor. So I'm pouring in this water, and look, it's just going to wilt down. I'm melting! Ah! And we're going in with another 4 cups. Yes. Get it all out. And we'll pour it in. So, ooh, we have got 8 cups of hot water mixed in with our flower petals. Well, let me set this over here. And I'm going to get a spoon. And I'm going to stir this up just a bit. Make sure everybody gets a dunk in the pool because we want that hot water to get to each individual blossom and shock it. And that's nice and stirred up. Oh, it smells good. That honeysuckle blossom smell is it's just amazing. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to let this sit for just, as long as you want to, but I know that it doesn't take that long. I'm just going to let this cool down just a few minutes. So I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm going to start getting other things ready. Now, I know that this particular batch is going to make between 9 to 11 jars of jelly. Now, I'm using half-pint jars, and I have got them over here in the sink. Now, this is hot water because you don't want to pour a cooked hot product into a cold jar. Just remember, we're following the method. So we're going to use these hot jars. We're going to drain out the liquid, and we're going to set them up, and they'll be getting ready for when we do have the jelly actually cooked. But just be getting your jars ready. Also, these are the seals. Now, for you veteran jelly and jam makers, y'all just bear with me here because there's a lot of folks who have no idea how to make jam and jelly. These are sealable lids. They've got a ring on the bottom that is made of rubber, I think, galvanized rubber, something like that. Anyway, when it comes in contact with hot boiling water and pressure from one of these lids, like that, you stick one on there and you bear down pressure. That with the heat inside of the product, when we do a water bath, because we're not going to cook them, we're just going to heat them good to ward off any kind of microorganisms, because we don't want any little nastiness in our jelly to cause mold or botulism, for Pete's sake. But we don't talk about that because that's not really a problem with this particular product. It's not really a perishable food item per se. I mean, you can make anything perish. I mean, anything will rot, but we don't have to really worry about that for honeysuckle jelly because it's not like we're using a fruit or a hunk of meat. We're just using a blossom and we're just taking its essence. So we don't really have to worry much about the microorganisms so long as we follow the method that comes in the little packet of the pectin. There's all kinds of recipes on the sheet that come with this pectin, and you're not going to find one on here that tells you how to make honeysuckle jelly or how to make rose petal jelly or how to make any other kind of flower jelly or jam. But you can go by a practical guide. Most cooked jams and jellies, they rely on a basic combination, and I've just decided that I use the apple recipe because it works. It always works for me, and well, that's just how it works. Now, I know that this recipe on this piece of paper for the apple calls for 5 cups of juice. Well, we used 8 because I wanted a few more jars of jelly. And I knew that we could because I had so many blossoms. If I was just going to make a regular batch, then we probably could have went with 4 cups of blossoms and then 5 cups of water, and that's fine. But I upped the ante just a little bit because, well, quite frankly, it's a pain in the butt to do this. And I only want to do it every once in a while. Now, honeysuckles bloom all summer long here in Georgia. So I can make this first batch, and it'll get gone quick. And then folks will be saying, Jamie, will you make me some of that? And then I'll have to get up the gumption to go out and pick more flowers. But it's not hard and it's fun as long as I don't come across a snake, because Jamie doesn't like snakes. Ah! Anyway, so enough of that. I have got my sugar measured out here. Now y'all are going to scream and shout when y'all know how much sugar is in this jelly recipe. But jelly's a condiment. It's not like you're going to sit down and eat a whole bowl of jelly. You're just going to use a teaspoon or so at a time. So I have got 6 cups of granulated sugar. Now, if you want to be of the natural variety and you don't want to use granulated sugar and you want to use honey, well, that's your business. But I can't tell you how to do it because I've never used honey as a sweetener. I've always just used regular sugar as a sweetener. And that's the only method that I know. But honey works, I'm sure. Somebody down the road has made it. Anyway, I have also got this gigantic pot of water. I've got it filled up about that full. And I have brought it up to a simmer. Now I've just turned it down a little bit because it's starting to boil. We don't want boiling. But this is what we're going to do our water bath in. Now, you can go online to your local extension office, like the forage office or the county agent, and generally there's going to be something that lists the requirements for canning methods, be it for fruit, vegetables, meat, just about anything that you want to process. They have written out the instructions and the guidelines as well as government regulations for stuff in case you're going to sell it. So you can take my advice and my method to heart to a certain degree, but if you don't feel comfortable doing a water bath, if you want to do an actual steam pressure canning for this, well, by all means, go ahead and do it if that makes you feel better about it, because I don't want you feeding your family something that you don't trust. But I do know that this recipe is totally safe the way that I do it in the water bath, because we do bring it up to a rolling boil and we hold that boil for at least 10 to 12 minutes, and that really does ward off any kind of bad little critter that might be lurking in there. It'll kill it graveyard dead, so I don't really think you need to worry about it too much, because I've not killed anybody yet, and I've made a bunch of jelly and I've given it away to a bunch of people. So I have a clear conscience, and I think that you will have one as well. So I've got this working. I am going to turn on a little pot of water that I've got in the back so that I can get these lids started heating. Now, these lids, they have got to be boiling hot when you put them on your jar. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good seal. And it's important to get a good seal if you want to be able to have this on the shelf unrefrigerated. It's just necessary. So I always put a little pot of water separately, and I just dump in, however, that was a whole pack. That was 12 lids. And I make sure there's enough water in there to cover them so that they're ready and good to go. And I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and as soon as it boils, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. Now, let's check our flowers just to see what's going on in here. They are, oh, they're perking up. Well, they're not perking up. They're wilting down beautifully. The color is leaching out of these blossoms. I can even macerate it just a little bit. I could take, let me show you what I mean. It's like when you go and order a mojito, you know, they take the lime and the mint and they smash it. Well, this is my ground beef masher. And I can just take this and I can mash this just a little bit like this, just to help it along, to break down those blossoms. If you don't have one, you don't have to do it, but I have it, so I'm going to use it to my advantage and just smack it around a little bit. All right. Set this over here. Now, it's cooled way down, but I'm going to let it go for another few minutes, and because I don't want to underuse the potential flavor that we've got here, so I'm going to let it cool down just the least bit more, and then we'll strain it, and then we'll start cooking it. So I'll be back in just a minute. So we might as well go ahead and strain off the juice so that we can get this party started and cook our jelly, because I have smelled this and the flavor, the smell, it's very, very strong, and it's telling me that I'm going to be fine if I go ahead and strain this off and use it. Optimally, it's good to let it sit overnight. That way you've got a good, strong infusion of that honeysuckle flavor. But quite frankly, I got life to live. I got places to be, and I got something to do tonight, so I don't have time to do this tomorrow. So we're just going to take care of it tonight, and I promise it's going to turn out beautifully, even if we do rush things a little bit. So I have got this colander lined with a doubled up piece of cheesecloth that I have put some water on, and I wrung all the water out. And so it's covered as many of these holes as I can get it to. And I put it down in this bowl, and I'm going to carefully pour this flour mixture into this bowl amid the cheesecloth so that we can separate it and strain it and get all the little bits out. Whew, the bottom of this jar is hot as fire. And I'm just being gentle as I pour, because I don't want to just dump it all in there and risk running some of that nasty flour parts down into my clear liquid, because what we're hoping for is a nice clear liquid, no cloudiness, and no little bits and pieces, or, you know, we don't want leaves and stuff in our jelly. We want our jelly to be nice and crystal clear. But it is going to be pretty and yellow, because I know. I'm going to set my little jar to the side. I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to smash these leaves down, or the blossoms, the least bit this way, just so I know that I'm getting all that liquid pushed out, because we don't want to waste anything. Now, I can fold this up on itself, and I can pull the corners together, and I can squeeze. Whoo, she's hot! But that's okay, I'm tough. So I have got, that's a lot. Oh God, it smells so good. Y'all are going to be thrilled if y'all ever try to make this. I mean, you might send me hate mail just because it's a pain in the butt to do it, but it's kind of fun to do. I mean, I enjoy it, but I'm a weirdo, so whatever. Look at all that beautiful goodness in that bowl. It's fabulous. All right, so there is my prepared honeysuckle infused wonderfulness. It's tea, pretty much. Now, I'm going to bring my handy dandy little cooker over here, because now we've got to cook this stuff. We've got to get it up to a rolling boil so that we can add our sugar. It's just necessary, so let's turn this sucker on, call the little, put our pan on, and now I am going to measure it one more time, excuse me, because well, I want to make sure how much juice I'm actually ending up with. So remember, I put 8 cups of water in. So see how pretty and yellow it is? The color infused out of those blossoms. And that's what we're left with. So there's 2. There's 4. 6. Well, if we're going to get 8, I thought we might miss a little bit. No, we actually have a little bit more somehow. It's a miracle of the honeysuckle. Alright, so got this going. I have got it turned up high so we can get it going to a rolling boil. Because that's what we're looking for. Now, if you were to pick up your handy dandy little guide and read the instructions like a normal person should, you will know the process for cooking this. Now, the process is simple. You heat up your product and then you add, let's see, you add your pectin first. So this is our bag, excuse me, this is our bag of pectin that came out of the little box. As soon as this comes up to a rolling boil, we're going to add this and we are going to stir it in. We're going to whisk it in to break up any little bumps or bubbles in there. And if you're using the apple jelly method, it calls for like some butter. I never ever put butter in it, in my jelly. Even if I'm making apple or grape or peach or whatever, I never do that. Put butter in because it has something to do with, you're going to notice that when we cook this down, when the sugar hits it and the pectin starts activating, it's going to have some bubbles on top that are kind of sludgy. And I think the butter is supposed to inhibit the formation of that sludge. I just use a big spoon and I skim the sludge off. So what's the big deal? I'm not going to put butter in my jelly. So that's how I think about it. Okay, so while we're waiting for it to come up to boil, and before I add the pectin, I'm going to go ahead and put my lemons in. Now, the difference between making a syrup and making something like jelly or jam, something that's going to set up and be firm, has to do with the pH balance of what you're working with. The reason I have to add the lemon is because in order for the setting to take place, the pH has to be right down the middle, correct, or else we won't get a product that sets up. It's just going to be runny, and if we wanted to make honeysuckle syrup, we'd be making honeysuckle syrup, but we're not. We want it to gel up so that we can spoon it out and spread it. So I am 100% sure, I'll say 99% sure, that this honeysuckle tea is an alkaline solution. Now that simply means that it is on the alkaline scale rather than on the acidic scale. Now, lemons are an acid. They're as acidic as you can get, probably, unless you're looking at battery acid or something. Anyway, we know that citrus fruit is very acidic. Well, this is alkaline, and it won't set by itself even if we put the pectin in, because it has to have some help. So let me stick that in here and I'll tell you. Looking on our little gauge, testing for alkalinity. It's at 0. So I know that it's alkaline and that it, it needs help. So I was just showing you again that science does come into play in this. So I'm going to put my little thing there. This is calling for probably about 1/4 cup of juice of fresh lemon. I'm just going to use 2 whole lemons because I know that these are nice and juicy and they've got lots of juice to share. So going in, straight in like this, and I'm using my little sieve so that I can keep the seeds out, because we don't want seeds in our jelly and we don't want the pulp in our jelly. Set it down right here. Get my little spatula. Just kind of give it a stir as it fogs up my glasses. So here we go. Here's a bowl. We're going to let it come to a full roll. And we're going to dump this in. Now, if you've never made jelly before, if you have the least bit of interest in it, I think you'll really enjoy the process. It can be aggravating if you try to make something that's a little bit different and it doesn't set up. I've done it many times and there's no shame in it, let me tell you, but it does hurt your feelings when you spend a lot of time, not to mention money, on the sugar and pectin, and you know, it's expensive. For it not to set up, makes you mad. Anyway, this one's gonna set up though, we know. So I've got my whisk, and this is at a full rolling boil, and I'm going in with my pectin. Just dumping it all in there. I'm gonna stir it around so that is in. Now, we're just gonna wait for it to come up to a boil, and then we're gonna time it, because we need it to come to a rolling boil. Now, this paper is saying that we need to have it come to a rolling boil for jelly for 2 minutes. So, I'll look at the clock, and we'll time it for 2 minutes at a rolling boil. Okay, we've hit the 2 minute mark on this bowl. Now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna stir it just one more time just to get the stuff off the side. And now we're gonna add the sugar. Don't freak out on me about the amount of sugar. Like I said, it's a condiment. You're only eating a little bit at a time. And these recipes have been created by folks who know what they're doing. And so I trust them. And so if they tell me I've got to put 6 cups of sugar in my jelly recipe, well then that's what I'm going to do. So grit your teeth and do it, y'all. I'm just putting it all in it one time. Boom. There it is. 6 cups of sugar. And you're probably thinking, well, it's just going to taste like sugar. It's not going to have any flavor. Stop. It's going to be fabulous, y'all. Trust me. I've made this before, remember? So, this is going to come up to a boil. And we're going to cook it a little while. Our little handy-dandy recipe guide suggests that we boil it for exactly, well, looks like 2 more minutes. So, as soon as it comes up to a boil, we will do that. In the meantime, while we're waiting on the boil to happen, I am going to go ahead and get my jars ready, because I know we need them, and I want to have them out so that I'm not having to stand around with nothing to do. So I'm going to put down a little towel so that I can put my hot jars out so that we can have them ready to rock and roll. So I'll be doing that. Keep watching. So I got to thinking, I probably want to put 1 more lemon in, because we did have some extra juice. So, I mean some extra liquid. I want to make sure I've got plenty of acid in there. So let's go ahead and do 1 more lemon, and I'm just going to juice this one, and I'm adding him into the pot as this comes up to a rolling boil, because I don't want to chance it. We want it to be just right. So in goes that little bit more of acid, citric acid from the lemon. Oh, it smells so good, y'all. I know I keep saying it, but it's true. It smells wonderful. Alright, so I'm going to let this cook for exactly 2 minutes. So I'm watching the clock. and we're there, 4:09. So now all that I have to do is cut this off, cut my gas off, and see, as it has died down, look, there's just the least bit of foam around the edge, and I'm going to take care of it. I'm going in with my big old serving spoon, and you just get around the edge just like this, and you just kind of scoop it out and put it over here in your little bucket. Because what this will do, if you don't take this out, it'll be on top of your jelly in the jar, and it'll be ugly. We don't want ugly. We want this to be beautiful, and it's supposed to look just like a little jar of sunshine, because that's what it's bloody well gonna taste like. So, and you don't have to get it. You don't have to get it all, but you want to get as much as you can, just because. And if you wanted to, you could even taste this, because there's some juice in the bottom. Great balls of fire. It tastes 10 times what it smells like. The taste is enough to just blow your mind. Automatically, it just hits you. It's just floral, and it is bright and sweet, of course, with the sugar. It's just lovely. Golly gee. All right. Anyway, enough of that. Moving it on. I'm going to get ready to put this in jars. So, we'll do house cleaning in just a minute. Move some stuff around. Now, I'm going to set this hot jelly there. I'm going to move my cook's top over here out of the way. And then I'm going to pour a little bit of white vinegar in this bowl, because the white vinegar, it helps to ensure that you're going to get a good seal. Now, if you don't have white vinegar, then you don't have to. You just have to make sure that you clean your tops really, really good. So we're going to turn our jars over just like this. And they're still hot from being in the hot water. Now, I have been known to put them in the dishwasher and run them on sanitize setting and heat dry, so that they're smoking bloody hot when you pull it out. And, you know, that's a great method too, because that means you know your glass is clean and it's good and hot and ready to receive this. So, I am going to get my little cup. I prefer to use a little plastic cup for filling, just because it's easy to handle. It's easier to handle than a glass one. And, well, that's my method. So, I'm going in. And please be careful, because, you know, this is right at boiling, and it's sugar, and it's hot. So, I'm going in. I'm going to fill each one just to the rim right here, because we want to leave that head space, because you need it. So, there's one. Now we're just going to do this all the way around. And we're going to try not to get any on the rim, because if we don't get it on the rim, then we don't have to clean it. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Look at that. And I'm very confident that it's going to set up into a beautiful jelly, because the composition of the liquid has already changed a little bit. It's not noticeable probably to you, but I can tell that it's thickening up in places. And that's just music to my eyes, if that's possible. Keep on going. the thing about making homemade jelly, not many people do it anymore, y'all. There's just not a lot of people who are willing to take the time to learn the process. So, you know, people love this stuff because number one, you control what goes in it. It's delicious. It's kind of inexpensive way to make gifts. I mean, if you make something like this and you know, put a bow on it and give it to somebody and you explain to them what you've done, that you've took time to make this for them, well, there's not a better thing in the world. So there, one more jar. And I'm going to have some left in a jar that I can use. I can put it in a different jar and then I can just sit it in the refrigerator and not have to water bath it. And then it'll just be ready to eat jelly for when Brad wants some on some toast. So I'm just going to set this to the side because I don't have another jar up here right this second. So I'm going to grab my lids. Now these have been boiling away and they are bloody hot. And I do not suggest you go after them with your fingers because that would be dreadful. I've got this handy dandy little tool that I bought in a canning kit. It's a magnet. What it is, you reach in and you grab your lid. These are all upside down, so I'm trying to get one right side up. Anyway, you go in and grab your lid. Shake off the excess water. Now, I was so careful with these that I did not spill a single drop on the rim. Praise God, I don't know how I did it because I always make a mess. But this time I was doing good. So, living right. So I'm putting this on and I'm squeezing it until it's just sealed. I'm not putting a Paul Bunyan grip on it. I'm sealing it until it catches and then I'm going just a little bit farther because we want to leave the headspace for the air so that when we start to boil it in the water bath, that extra air comes up to a higher temperature and escapes, and then it vacuum seals when we take it off the heat. I know it's science again. What are you going to do? It's everywhere, y'all. Science is happening everywhere. So, I'm just continuing with this until I'm done. So, sit and watch. So we're here at the end, and I have got these all capped, sealed up just enough. So now they're ready to go into the water bath. Now I've got this over here at a simmer. I'm going to turn the heat down because we don't really want it to be a rolling boil when we stick these guys in there. It's just not what we're looking for. We just want it to be a nice simmer. We want the water to be hot. So I have grabbed it with this handy dandy little grabber because they're still hot. You don't grab them with your fingers and then drop them into hot water. So this thing, it came in my canning kit and it's the best little thing. You just grab it, pull it over here, and you just situate your cans around the edge of this jar. Now normally, if I were going to be pressure canning, I would use a little grate for the bottom just so that things wouldn't be touching the bottom so easily. But it's not such a big deal for this because we're not going to be using pressure. We're just using the hot water and some time. So it's not really necessary. I don't think they'll break or anything, so bear with me as we drop them in the hot water. To get one more in here. Let's see if we can fit it in. Come on, yay! It's a perfect fit. Yay! So, everybody's in the pond. I'm going to turn my heat up. bring it up to a boil. And I'm going to let it go for exactly 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, then I'm going to come back and talk to you. And I'll show you what's going on. Okay, y'all. It's been 10 minutes for this jelly at a rolling boil. So now we're ready to take it out of the pot and let it cool. So here goes. We got to get some muscle up for this. And be careful as you transfer. Keep it away from your face because you will get a hot steam bath. See what I mean? Always away from your face. Set the lid down. Whew, and it's just bubbling away. So I'm going to use my handy dandy grippers. And I'm pulling these out of the water. We want to be careful with it. Pour off the extra water. And we're just going to set them out. And we're going to let these come to room temperature on their own. I'm going to leave a little space between just for air circulation. And hopefully tomorrow they will be set up. Now, jelly's a fickle creature. Sometimes it takes days for the product to set. Other times it sets almost instantly, and by the time you get the jars cooled down, it's jelly. So, you know, the process, it's weird. Ooh, somebody already went pop. But these lids will start popping pretty soon, as soon as it starts sealing up. And I'm crossing my fingers that we get jelly and not just syrup. So, hopefully the addition of that extra lemon helped. I might have even needed to put another lemon in. But, hey, live and learn. Whatever. I do hope that y'all have enjoyed watching this little tutorial on jelly making with a very unconventional product being the honeysuckle. If you don't have access to wild growing honeysuckles, I'm sorry as I can be, because it's a beautiful flower. It's a beautiful smell, and it's just the South. It just screams South. I hope you take the time to watch this video though, and I hope that you like it. I hope you subscribe to my channel, and I hope you come visit me over at JamieTeachMeToCook.com. Everything that I make here on YouTube video-wise always goes over to my website, as well as a few other things that I don't do on videos. So please come over and pay me a visit. I guess that's about it. I will take some pictures of this in the morning so that you will be able to see that it has set up. Cross your fingers for me, okay? Bye, y'all.